help women, save lives, and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. And she just came out. She told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Shawn Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Shawn Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. We are towards the end of summer. Labor Day is in a couple of weeks. We are also just, maybe a month out, a little less than that, from the release of What to Say When To. And that book continues to sell a lot in pre-sales. We encourage you to get that book. It comes out Tuesday, September the 10th. If you would like a signed copy and free shipping, you can pre-order that at our website. 40 Days for Life makes more money if you order it directly from us. You want to support our mission. You can get it on Amazon, and that's all great. But we'd really appreciate it if you would order it directly from us. And you will also get free shipping. So go to 40daysforlife.com, click on the store, and you will see What to Say When To. For those of you who pre-order, you will get a signed copy. We're about to sign them, so be sure to place your order and get that in. Today, we are going to have a lot of fun because we are doing another questions podcast. We haven't done one of these in a long time. This is where you, the listener or the viewer, have sent us questions for us to address. Some of them are very simple. Some of them are very complicated, but we filtered out the questions that are the most relevant, I guess, in our opinion, and we will be addressing those, and there's quite a diverse group of questions that you have for us. So we will be going through those, and joining me, someone that I've never had to question at all, is Mr. Steve Carlin from Madison, Wisconsin. Welcome to Texas in August.
Glad to be here, even in August. Indoors in Texas, it is freezing, and there are icicles hanging off the camera.
Heather is joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, and you're not a cat woman.
No.
We discovered that earlier, so J.D.
Yeah.
Vance was not addressing you.
Correct.
He said the cat lady. I've encountered one or two cat ladies in my day. And we have them on the pro-life side, too. There's nothing wrong with being a cat lady, but we know what he was talking about.
I'm okay with the cat ladies. It's the cat moms I have a problem with.
They don't have kids, but they say they're a mom because they have a cat.
Yes.
Pet parents.
We've talked about that before. I just discovered something about you. I have so much respect for you at this moment in our relationship, and I didn't know this. We were discussing Super Tecmo Bowl, one of the greatest cultural creations of all time.
It's like the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Yeah, it's like Super Tecmo Bowl and like the iPhone. Like those are in my category of they changed my life forever. You in high school, this is awesome. You in high school, so back in the day, we had those, there were like carts. This is so crazy now because every classroom has like a TV in it and, you just stream everything. You had these carts with a TV and a VCR, okay? And they
would need to explain VCRs to our younger listeners.
I don't think so. They can Google it. They probably own one. All this stuff's now back in, right? The record players and the VCRs. Yeah. Okay, so these little mobile units that would go classroom to classroom so you could watch a video on like whales or something in your class. So you brought your Nintendo, hooked it up to one of those in a classroom and played Super Tecmo Bowl at school.
Yeah, at study hall every day. For most of the semester.
Every day.
Wow.
I didn't catch that. I thought this was like you did it one time and it's like, Steve's the man.
I thought you did it in detention.
I assumed it was going to be one time because there's no way that this is going to be allowed to fly, right? Like someone's going to come and be like, ha, ha, ha. Or maybe they laugh at me like, put it away, Carlin. Or like I'm in trouble. I didn't know. I was taking a chance that day. But nobody.
This is a public school.
Yes,
Very much so. Okay.
But nobody ever stopped me, and so I just did it every day. And then lo and behold, the other kids on their study hall, they'd do it too. So there was Tecmo Bowl going basically from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. in the study hall every single day for the majority of a semester.
Who was your team? Did you switch it up?
Yeah, it was tough because you couldn't take the Giants. There was an understanding.
Yeah. Lawrence Taylor ran like a 1.840.
I would generally say I was pretty good at it because it was my game and there were others. So I would generally take one of the poorer teams.
Me too.
I can't remember who it would always be. It'd be different from time to time. Like I think the Broncos were pre-Elway maybe.
No, they had Elway.
They had Elway. Somebody was pre a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I would take them, and it was
Miami was good. The Oilers were good. They had Warren Moon. Philly was okay. They had Randall Cunningham. I always get the Chargers.
Okay.
They were like, they weren't good, but they had enough players to where you could win the Super Bowl with them and brag to your friends.
And this was the original Tecmo Bowl where they didn't have all the teams, and I don't think
Heather's about to get up and go to the bathroom.
Jill needs to incorporate like a thought bubble over my head
isn't-
saying, "Oh yay,
Look,
sports again."
Here's for the listeners. Okay, so we have a lot, like our parents are boomers. They know exactly what this is because they raise their children on it. Or there's people our age that are like, please keep talking about Super Tecmo Bowl.
Just skip the pro-life stuff.
Just skip all the pro-life questions.
And you know who you are.
You know who you are, but you doing it. I could have woken up with my head under the carpet. I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now. To quote Clark Griswold, I can't believe that you did that.
It brought people together. There were people like...
This is what we need to do in our divided political toxic culture. We need to bring Nintendos
Harris
to
and
school.
Trump sat down and played some Tecmo Bowl. We would find a way to resolve our problems in
No,
culture.
they'd
But this was
find
like the
it's-
issue.
Yeah, they'd find problems with the game though. It doesn't have enough representative of each.
No, what they would do is they would say, Steve's wrong. He brought Nintendo to school. Instead, we're going to have a drag transgender person read to a kindergartner, and that's more productive. So
There you go.
you want to talk about how we've descended. So I used to order pizzas to the school all the time.
Awesome. That's better than Tecmo Bowl at school.
I don't know. So this is high school. They put it in the rule book. No outside food can be delivered. Like today, if I had access to like DoorDash or Uber Eats, I mean, you're like chicken lo mein or whatever, it'd just be awesome, right? There's just endless possibilities. But it was always Papa John's pizza.
But you did this before you had a cell phone. Was this before you had a cell phone?
Yep.
And probably you didn't go to public school?
No, I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah. So there's no security guards.
And this
like,
was,
standing
I
at
went
the
to
door.
Bishop Gorman. This is back in the day when all the bishops were like naming the high schools after themselves. And so, yeah, I went to Bishop Gorman. And so Heather, that's what makes it more impressive. I wasn't going to point that. I'm using the school phone.
That's what I was thinking. You just snuck into the office and was like, hey, I need to call my mom real quick. I forgot my lunch. And then you ordered a pizza?
Exactly.
Wow.
So, or can I use the phone? Sometimes they would just let you.
Yeah.
Here was my downfall in high school. I mean, I was discerning the priesthood, so I had to I couldn't do anything like really bad, because not get into seminary or whatever. So the problem was both school secretaries, especially Miss Wallace, God rest her soul, she's dead now, they just loved me. And they were never skeptical of anything. I could do no wrong. So that was a problem, okay? Mm-hmm. They treated me like I was 35-year-old and responsible. So they put it in the rule book, you can't do it. So then what ended up being my future brother-in-law, okay, I played high school football with my brother-in-laws. He says, I will finance it. I'll fund the pizzas if you figure out how to get them here. But I'm not attached to it. I'll eat it because I want Papa John's pizza. But when we get in trouble, it's all on you. So I was like, gold. Thinking there's 50% chance they just won't enforce this. Number one, do they even know that they changed it? Number two, they have to enforce it. And what is that going to be? A detention? I mean, I'm not going to get suspended. So I ordered the pizzas illegally. And there's a back entrance to the school. and it sounds really bad because what the way it stood out, you can't really see it, but there's a cross above it. So I get the Papa John's guy on the phone, and I'm like, "Don't come. We're having some remodeling or whatever." So yeah, I'm all in with this. So I'm like, "You need to meet me." He thinks I'm like the high school chemistry teacher or something. You need to meet me at the other entrance. There's 2 entrances when you look at the school. There's one close to the gym. It has a cross at the top. I'll be there. So he walks up, and I tell him the exact time. He walks up, and you're over tipping, right? Oh. And I'm not paying for it because I'm just like the middleman. So tip him. He kind of looks at me. It's like some dude like in college, and he's like, what's going on? So we get the pizzas. I come out, and the principal walks like way down. It's a long hallway, and he kind of glances, and he doesn't see the pizzas because there was like a wall. So I hold out the pizzas, so he just sees me. And he can't tell if I went into the classroom or went into the bathroom. But I went into the bathroom. And
pizza in the bathroom sounds
in
like,
the
like you would
bathroom.
have been desperate.
Yeah, exactly.
Food.
yes. So and now I'm like, what do I do? So I do the old school trick where I go in the stall and I stand on the toilet and I crouch down and he looks under all of them. And I locked myself in and then he leaves.
Oh my God.
So how long? You must be like, how long do I wait?
Yeah. I was like counting and all that. And this is all, so class is in.
But he didn't smell the pizza. The bathroom was just overwhelming.
Heather's putting it all together. Yeah. That's the only really asterisk part of this story. So class is still in. We're about to get out for lunch. So I have time, okay? Because I couldn't order the pizzas when everybody's going through the hallways because then they would just see it. Although that may have been smarter looking back. So I wait. The bell rings, I bring the pizzas out, and I'm sitting there, and me and all my friends are eating pizza. And the principal, who is in the cafeteria eating his lunch, walks over, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating lunch." He said, "What are you having?" I said, "We're having pizza. Do you want a piece?"
We can share if you want to.
He said, "You can't do that." I said, "Can't do what?" He said, "You can't have pizza for lunch." I said, "But we're having pizza for lunch." It was like Abbott and Costello. Because I knew he was a weak guy. So I knew he wasn't going to enforce it, okay? And he said, "Where did you get the pizza?" And I said,
Found it?
"From Papa John's." And he said, "How did it get here?" And I said, "It's here." Like I'm just
run out of answers.
Need to know basis.
I'm just making like generic. It's like watching the Secret Service lady, answer to Congress. You're just like, you're not giving us any information. So that was my version of your Nintendo.
So the only run-in I had with faculty on the Nintendo, this is actually maybe a better part of the story even, is the only time anyone said anything to me was like, "Hey, Steve, we need to talk about the Nintendo." I was like, well, all good things come to an end. And the teacher said, the superintendent and the school board are going to be like auditing the classes this week. We know they'll be done. We don't know when they're coming, but we know they'll be done by Thursday. And so if you could like put the Nintendo away until Thursday.
Okay, I actually want to make a really deep pro-life point about this, and I've shared this with my kids, and I know Heather's going to agree with this. Okay, now that we're older, we're 40, and I have now 4 teenagers, hard to believe, 3 teenage daughters and a teenage son. My son just turned 16 last week. Okay, so here's what I know and I realize, okay? Like looking back, the pizza thing is like immature and stupid and I'm lying and all that stuff. Total fun. Okay, overall, looking back, me and most of my friends, asterisks, were like mature high school men. And we were idiots, complete morons. And what I've realized, having 2 daughters first, thankfully, like a 12-year-old woman is like a 24-year-old dude in maturity. Like we always say, well, the girls develop faster. It's more than that. It's unbelievable because you take like my daughters they're super fun, right? And they do theater and all this, and they read books, and we watch movies, and we joke around all the time. But they're like very mature.
Yes.
And my son is mature, but he's a boy. And so you're just an idiot, and you can't escape it.
Scarcely human.
It's like COVID. Like we were all going to get it. And high school males, it doesn't matter how, whatever. They're just morons. And Mary Lisa argues like, you just release like 90% of that, but 10% it still exists when you're 42 years old. I don't think that was directed at me, but it sounded like it. And so
I think it was.
there is part of it. Every guy is like still in high school, like
Yes.
1%. But women are just, they mature so much quicker. And it's just unbelievable. I mean, my daughters now, like, you have a conversation with them, they could be 30 years old, you know, if it's the right topic, right? And the boys, no.
Laura and I came to the conclusion that had we known each other in high school, we would have been mortal enemies.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
She was polite. I was not.
Would you have made fun of her for some reason?
I would have pushed her buttons for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. She was like a good student. She wasn't like I don't know. She just took things seriously, and I didn't take things seriously. And I would have found the things where, like, if she thought something was inappropriate, I would have like, I'm gonna be inappropriate even harder now.
Okay, you were like that guy.
Yeah.
That's really encouraging to hear about you, actually. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me about Laura because I like Laura, and I think that she and I in some ways are alike, and I was like that too. So
See, and it's not fair because I knew Mary Lisa in high school, but I would have never gone near her. She's 2 years older than me, so I was like a freshman. She's a junior, sophomore, senior. I'd have never. She had the cool boyfriend. She was like prom queen, valedictorian, and head cheerleader. Everybody loved her. She wasn't like the girl that was popular that everybody hated. She was the girl that was popular and everybody like loved her. So there's like, she's just like textbook, you know? And, but I would have never gone up and talked to her without.
When Laura and I started dating, I was like, dude, this girl is way out of my league, and somehow she doesn't know it. But she'll find out quickly. So I better like try to use this relationship,
Lock her down.
to learn how to date. So when she figures out and dumps me, maybe I'm a little less weird with the next girl. And now we're obviously married and have 5
But
kids.
did you have like a second wave of that where you're like, okay, I think I need to save some money for an engagement ring because I've officially dated her long enough to
Maybe
where it's
she's
not
gonna-
creepy,
she's
and
gonna-
Yeah.
she may just wake up and dump me.
It didn't take, well, no, by the time we were talking engagement, I knew it was kind of built to last. But that first month,
Okay.
where I'm like, I mean, you guys have known me long enough, and frankly, I think the podcast listeners know me long enough to know, like, Steve seems like a good guy, but he's like a little weird and awkward. That's where I was like, I better figure out how to date while I've got someone who's willing to date me, and then maybe I can
Yeah.
learn a lesson or two.
I figured your sports knowledge would have come in handy with the free agency market, and you're sitting here going, okay, look, you know, the guy almost made the Pro Bowl his second year. We're signing him to a long term. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. You know, we're locking you down, and that you would have kind of rushed it.
Your story is one small detail away from being a made-for-TV rom-com. Like, oh,
It really is.
This is going to be the practice run so that when I'm ready to date, and then,
Yes.
oh, they fall in love at the end with each other.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, it's like The Notebook meets The Breakfast Club.
Yes.
I wish we had 2 hours for this banter section. There is a lot of uncovered ground.
We didn't get to the bad things Heather did, but she said, I can't say mine on camera, which that makes it even better.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ordering pizza, you nerds.
Say, always leave them wanting more. Well, I want more. I want to know what Heather did.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Steve, guide us through the. Okay, so here's the first question. Is this a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering where the question is. But
In Ohio, the
there's an implied-
2023 referendum, the Right to Life supporters worded the language allowing for no exceptions for rape or incest. I'm not even sure of an exception to save the life of the mother. The referendum was voted down, which we all know in Ohio. My view is that these positions are why it lost. It seems obvious to me that allowing for some or all above exceptions would have greatly increased the chances of it passing, which would have at least saved some of the unborn.
I took this as an implied question of should we have exceptions in pro-life legislation or amendments to make them easier to pass and to enact into law. And obviously we're not a political or a legislative organization, but what we do intersects very greatly with the laws. And so I think it's a discussion worth having, and there are many, many discussions like that are happening within the Republican Party, within the pro-life movement itself. And I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have. Like, do we take what we can get, or do we kind of hold out the more principled, absolutist stance?
Yeah, that's a question that I think has been answered a lot, in that people either say, no, you can't have exceptions, which you can't morally. But in the world of politics, all politics is compromise. So my philosophy, which we can get emails on, the way to end abortion is by closing abortion facilities. If you want to end McDonald's, you need McDonald's locations to close. Okay, so my rule is, will the legislation close abortion facilities and potentially end all abortion? That's why I'm totally fine with the heartbeat bills. It closes all the abortion facilities because you don't even know if you're pregnant. So they're like, well, you believe in abortion at 6 weeks. No, I don't. Morally, it's always wrong. Mm-hmm. Politically, it may be right because it's going to end abortion. And so the notion that whether it's anybody, Texas Right to Life or New York Right to Life or all these like state legislative groups that go out and are like, if we pass a heartbeat bill or we allow for exceptions, this is going to pass. It's going to close every single Planned Parenthood in our state. To not do that would be dumb. Not just politically, but perhaps even morally. It doesn't mean you're for those You cannot, rape and incest are less than 1% of all abortions, which we've talked about, which we really get into, and what to say when too. You can't run an abortion facility based on that. So this is, if you want to close all the McDonald's and you say you're allowed to sell salads, okay? That's the exception. McDonald's is going to care less. They're like, well, we're going to close all of our locations. We can't serve fries and Big Macs. So I think if it closes abortion facilities, it's fine.
That's
politically.
I think some people look at this too. There's like different analogies that people really contemplate back and forth, because on one hand you think of, okay, abortions due to rape are less than 1% of the cases of abortion. However,
which you should never say.
We know real life people who are products of rape, who thank God share their stories with the world, and show that just because of their conception does not mean that their life is less valuable. And so we shouldn't have those exceptions going along that philosophy. But then another way that people look at it is, okay, but if you have a burning building and you have people in it and you can save all of them, none of them, or some of them, are you going to say, well, if we can't say all of them, we're not going to save any of them? In real life situation, which that's a realistic scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't want to go with crazy unrealistic scenarios. That's a realistic scenario, a burning building, and there's people in there. You want to save as many people as possible out of that building, even if you can't save all of them. So that's another analogy that people kind of use to look at these situations, and it's definitely a dilemma, I think, for a lot of people.
The moral theology of it from the Catholic perspective, I think we can have a moral theologian write in, would be the remote participation. Because what somebody's going to say is, we're all against all abortions, no exceptions, right? Well, then I can't vote for something that allows exceptions.
Right.
Well, what the Catholic Church would say is, you're not voting for that. You're voting to save the 99% of all the abortions done, of all those babies. And even if somehow there's an exception and it's a rape, and the abortion clinics don't close and they stay open and a rape victim goes there, that's not your responsibility. It's remote participation. It's like ordering the coffee and you're like...
a double effect type of thing?
Yeah, where you can't... in order to do good, you can't get out of it. So your coffee, all of our coffee, really, it's starting to become a thing, but it's like, it's not really an ethical business how we get our coffee, It's kind of shady, but we all drink coffee. We're not directly, involved in that. And so it's called remote participation, which sounds like kind of diet morality, or you're wussing out. But there's the fact that you have to operate in the world. The world is covered in sin, and you're not going to be able to not be part of that. in a direct way or an indirect way, because we're all sinners. So
I think there's two things I think are worth mentioning here. And the first one is one of the things that particularly bothers me about this notion of the exceptions is who's asking for them in the first place. They definitely don't satisfy any abortion supporters. And I don't think you even really see like the women themselves clamoring for these exceptions. It's usually invented by pro-lifers where there's kind of like, well, we're kind of embarrassed on our position here, and so we're gonna. And I think it does undercut. Like I understand 100% what you're saying about like, does it close abortion facilities? Bottom line, get it. But I think I'd encourage a little more courage on the part of the pro-lifers rather than like, let's throw those babies overboard. Let's have the courage to make the case, because I think there's a strong case to be made. And that leads me into the second thing I think is important is...
But do you see my point? You're not throwing the babies overboard, because no rape victim will be able to get an abortion if there's no abortion facilities. Mm-hmm. So that's the point, is that that's not what I thought you were going to say. I think that the pro-lifers invent the exceptions because they don't want the pro-abortion folks. You can't argue for abortion, right? We talk about this all the time. It can never be a positive. So what they say is they want to force even rape victims to have their baby. And if you have the exception in there, they can't say that. That's typically the reason why they do it. And I understand that. It's a marketing thing. We don't want to give them that. It's one of the reasons Trump is smart not to do any federal ban at this time, because he was going to do 15 weeks, which is horrible. But also they can say Trump's going to ban abortion. It doesn't matter if the ban's at 39 and a half weeks. They don't care. They would be able to associate him with ban, and it would be bad politically. I understand things like that. But the caving in is something that is weird post-Roe. Mm-hmm. Like a 15-week abortion ban in 2008 with Obama, that would have been a huge pro-life victory. Mm-hmm. In a Roe v. Wade America. It's a total joke in 2024. You know, just like heartbeat pills were. That's pretty awesome. Like when you look at it, you know, I mean, that closed dozens of abortion facilities in the state of Texas before Roe was overturned. So I just think that, of course, we're like market driven, but the idea that a pro-life political leader says we're putting exceptions in there, then they can't make it about rape. I understand that. I'm not going to accuse that person of being for abortion for rape victims. Right. I don't think that that's fair.
One of the things I think we really need to address here, and maybe some of the listeners and viewers are asking already, is the phrasing of this. The 2023 referendum, the Right to Life supporters worded the language allowing for no exceptions for rape and incest. That's complete perception, right? Because it wasn't a pro-life referendum on the ballot. It was a pro-abortion referendum on the ballot.
Is that true? Did they not allow exceptions in Ohio?
This was just, it wasn't a pro-life amendment in the first place. And so this was just there's a right to abortion. And then the advertising, the marketing of this amendment was like heavily focused on rape and incest. But that was not something that was introduced into the conversation by pro-lifers at all, because it was, again, all these amendments that we've been facing and that we'll face in Florida and Maryland and Montana, these are all designed by the abortion industry. So I don't think rape plays into it at all, except for the selling of it.
And exactly. And we not to plug the heck out of the book, but we really crush this in what to say when too, because everything has become about rape. We also use real life examples. And that's why, like, if I were running for Congress in some district somewhere, I would be no exceptions, all of that, right? Because we would know how to do it. We would have probably rape victims who have chosen life to help us campaign. We would humanize it. We could do it. But we do this like this is our job. I just don't think most politicians, I don't think most voters are able to convince somebody that rape victims shouldn't have access to abortion. I think you and I can, but there's not a lot of people.
That's why
Heather
we got the
can.
book coming out, right? We talk to the rape survivors. We talk to those who are conceived in incest. We have that conversation. Those who are following our content right now, whether it be this podcast or the magazine or any of these things, we're hammering these issues pretty hard because they're the issues that are being discussed. And I hope that more people will feel confident, not being like, well, we're kind of on our heels.
And also, this is important in post-Roe America. The pro-abortion people have done a fantastic job at using rape to give us 1.2 million abortions every single year. And if we don't address that in a way that wins, now we can sit there and say, I'm not voting for anything that allows us to say it. You can do that, but you're going to have a lot of abortions in your state. And so I think that I've heard a lot of ethical and moral talks on this of like, and it's voting and all that. Like you're not voting for somebody to become a saint, right? You're voting for legislation. You're voting for a political person. And so you are always going to have the people that say, you voted for so-and-so, therefore you believe and endorse all of his or her sins that they've ever done or whatever. But we've got to look at what closes abortion facilities. And I understand, obviously, all-out abortion bans are the best, no exceptions. But I understand these Republicans that, have an abortion ban and they allow rape and incest and all the abortion clinics close. And there's no talking points for the other side because they win on rape in public opinion.
Like Ryan Baumberger says, they use the 1% to justify the 99%.
And it works.
Yeah.
And it keeps working.
This is, I think, also where I'm really glad that we're not in the political end of it. We discuss it,
Me
we
too.
talk about it, we need to, but none of us and like very few of those who are participating out on the sidewalk are ever going to have to cast a vote before the legislature in their capital on whether to have this amendment to their pro-life legislation or not. We're out there and we can save lives in any case. And I've gotten some concerned emails from, I don't want to dignify the group that's doing it, but there's a group out that's putting out very professional, polished videos attacking the pro-life movement for saying that some states are abortion free. Well, we know they're shipping the pills in. We know that. Like, is that true? Sure. But you create a division in the movement that is completely unnecessary. There's no doubt that there are more lives saved here in the state of Texas because of imperfect legislation in so many other states. And I think
That's just a waste of time. Like
Absolutely.
You can make nice videos on
Yeah.
on Walgreens stock tanking after they agreed to sell abortion pills. I mean, there's just so many things that we need to be educated on.
And that's why I bring it up, because I think there's sometimes a temptation. We've talked about needing to learn how to win. And I've seen this causing some discouragement among pro-lifers. Like, and now we're getting attacked by your own people. Is it pro-life? And it's a distraction. Our job is we go out and we pray and we fast and we stand vigil and we witness and we vote our consciences. And I think if we find ourselves as attack dogs on policing who is the most, it's not our job at 40 Days for Life. We go out and we pray. Everybody should be on board with that. And frankly, if you're unhappy with the comprehensiveness of the pro-life laws in Georgia or Texas or whatever state, you got no beef with 40 Days for Life, because we're still standing vigil in front of the places that are selling them.
The places that are selling them and that are still open, we're there. But I think there's two aspects to it. You have to know how to win, but also you can't be a spoiled little brat, because I just remember I was a senior in high school when Clinton was president. He was president when I was senior in high school. I did not have I had a great view of like America because my grandfather served in World War II and all of that, but just hope for the future of our country. Like when he signed the partial birth abortion bill.
He vetoed it.
Yep. Right. But when that was like a thing, that was so sad for me, like as a high school guy, right?
Yep.
And just thinking, this is awful what we do. It kind of like you grow up and you lose a little of your innocence. Like, there's a lot of evil in the world, and then of course a year later, 9/11 happened. But it was just really dark. I remember thinking like our culture, and I grew up in a great town, and I kind of lived in a bubble, and I realized it. And if you fast forward to today, which of course today is like insane, right? We're telling boys they can be girls, but the 90s were the height of the abortion industry and abortion numbers in our country. And we only were about to get more pro-abortion with Obama. I mean, he was just a disaster. When you look at today with Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, I throw Florida in there, although we got a lot of work to do in Florida, South Carolina. But like, that's why I always say most of these states either highly regulate or are essentially abortion free. That is true. When you look, back in time, Texas was doing 365 abortions a day. 365 a day in the state of Texas alone. Now it's 0. And of course we have other issues going on. There's not 0, but there's like 14 or something.
Right. But I think that's something that is actually going to help our volunteers. And kind of going to another question here, Reverend Brian Walker, our wonderful leader in Minnesota, he's saying, how can we increase interest in states that have, he's asking for pro-abortion legislation, but when we have pro-life legislation, when we have on the flip side, where we have states like Texas, the problem is for many of our leaders here is that they're not able to recruit as many volunteers because we have this mindset, what is the purpose? If Texas is abortion free, there's no point in us being on the sidewalk. And the truth of the matter is, yes, legally, abortions have plummeted. But we know, like you kind of said earlier, they're stockpiled. The abortion industry is encouraging women to stockpile their medicine cabinets with abortion pills, whether they get them from India, from these third-party websites, from Mexico. They're ordering them from other states to be sent. Mm-hmm. It's illegal to mail abortion pills in Texas, but how do you regulate that? No one's going to come to your house and be like, we need to search for abortion pills, make sure you didn't get any in the mail. So we know a lot of abortions are happening in the state of Texas. They're not being documented.
And they're illegal.
They're illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like we use the slavery analogy with this.
Yeah.
If I say Texas is abortion free, which it is, in my opinion, okay, but there are some going on illegally. To me, that's just like slavery ended in the United States. No, it didn't.
Right.
No, it didn't. You go some places, it's still people are treated like slaves that work for whoever, and it's just that like the abortion Inc. as an industry, as it operated in Texas, is gone. Okay. Now, the reason to do 40 Days for Life in Texas is, where Planned Parenthood is, there's a problem. I think these Planned Parenthoods are closing rapidly. I think more of them are going to close. They're waiting.
Not in Texas.
Right.
They're not a single Planned Parenthood has closed yet in Texas since Dobbs. There's been other facilities that have closed. Right. But Planned Parenthood makes up the majority. And like you said, where there's Planned Parenthood, there's a problem. And
part of that is they own their real estate. They've gotten rid of a lot of staff, but they are waiting to see what happens in November.
They are.
And they're waiting. They want this Supreme Court thing. And why is Kamala doing Biden was doing it too. We were going to go back to Roe. Roe was awful. You should get a better abortion law and have that. That would be the worst for the pro-life movement. They just want to go back to Roe. That's fine. I don't know how they're going to do that. But they want that to happen. And that's their Hail Mary, ironically. And, if that doesn't, okay, if she wins, it'd be horrible for the pro-life movement, there's no doubt. But if that doesn't happen, they're going to have to start cashing these places out and building big abortion facilities in Colorado or wherever they go. But you cannot maintain that real estate when you could just cash it out and go somewhere else. So I do think we'll see most of them close. But look, the whole there's no mosquitoes at the beach. It's too windy. And then you see one during the 7 days and you're like, there's mosquito, there has to be.
Caffeine's a drug.
Yeah. Caffeine's a drug. It's no different than heroin. The guy that told me that, and I was like, no, you're right. There's no difference. And he started laughing because he knows it's total BS. So, we have to be able to talk. We also have to be able to share positive news. It's good that we went from 365 abortions a day in Texas to like 14 the whole year. That's a good thing. But anyways, the point of the Questions podcast is not just to speak to the loons.
Yeah. And I guess Reverend Walker's question takes us to the other end of the spectrum. What do you do in the Minnesotas and the Colorados and the New Yorks and the Californias of the world that have gone whole hog?
Yeah, his is how do we keep an increased interest in 40 days in states that have passed aggressive pro-abortion legislation? I think it's actually, this is where 40 Days for Life thrives. This is why it's more important now than ever, because you're not going to get legislation in California that ends abortion. That's not happening. But you can close abortion facilities, definitely, and we have through 40 Days for Life. And so I think you use that. Sometimes the anti-gun lobby does this in Texas. Texas will pass like open carry like swords. Like you can walk around like William Wallace. That's actually legal in Texas. Okay. Yeah. When they did open carry, so you don't need a concealed carry license.
Right.
Anybody can come to Texas, live here, and start carrying a gun.
Constitutional carry,
which New Hampshire has actually. So, I mean, the anti-gun people use that to show how crazy that is, right? I'm not giving my opinion on it because I'm not going to go there. But they'll be like, that's insane, right? And that's what we can do in these pro-abortion states. They want abortion. We have no abortion up to 40 weeks. Wow, it's 12 or 15 in most of Europe. Wow. You can use the outrage of your state and how crazy the pro-abortion folks are to get more people out on the sidewalks, because you can go on the rant about California or New York or Minnesota, where Brian is. Minnesota's nuts. It's the weirdest state, and it's gorgeous. I've been to every corner of it. It's awesome pro-life campaigns. You hate it because you hate the Vikings, but I don't have that bias. I'm like, this is beautiful. But you drive around, there's all these farmers. Wisconsin's kind of like this, but Wisconsin still culturally is not as loony.
Everyone in Minnesota is Scandinavian, and there's a lot of that in pockets of Wisconsin. No, it's true. Like the Scandinavian ancestry lines up with the leftist voting.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just thought you liked saying Scandinavian. So that's, okay, so you gave the explanation, but I'm like, this is a strange place, like politically. And it was purple and now it's totally blue, but there needs to be but who cares? Like, we can still save a baby. We can still close an abortion facility.
Yeah, I feel helpless not being able to do anything politically, but knowing, okay, we have 40 Days for Life. We have peaceful prayer vigils. That's something I can do. No one can stop me from praying. No one can stop me from going to the abortion facility and trying to be Christ to the moms and to the abortion workers.
It's ultimately a question. I think what this question gets at is the question of hope and fortitude versus despair, because we've seen a lot of rising momentum over the years, whether it be the growth of 40 Days for Life, the enthusiasm that came from Unplanned, the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. There's been momentum. And now in some of these states, we've got to figure out, do we have the fortitude to stand up when the chips are down, when we've suffered a setback or two? And I think that in some cases, perhaps there's a danger. Maybe we've gotten too used to, what did Trump say when he was running? You're going to be tired of winning. Did people get tired of winning and they got addicted to winning and they got used to winning and now we suffer a setback or two and we run? I think people of faith are at our best. Christians and pro-lifers are at our best when the odds are against us, and the odds are against them in Minnesota and California and some of those other states that we've talked about. But this is the beauty here. Some people may respond to it, some people won't. But we've got an opportunity now to do, through our presence on the sidewalk, what cannot be done in the Capitol.
Absolutely. And it works. And this is the great gift of America. Like, it is market driven. We can go out and convince people, that they don't need to have an abortion and that there are other options and that they're not alone. And we need to do that. And we do it more in more liberal states than conservative by far. So yeah, I think definitely using that for your advantage.
Education definitely helps, and I think that would go to some of the questions we've gotten that are about the abortion pill. We've got some pharmacy campaigns,
Yes.
which are great in several states. Are we saying people's names? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Becky Matthews asked specifically about her pharmacy campaign in New Hampshire and recognizing essentially that most abortions now are the abortion pill and not surgical, but how do we get that word out to people? There's not a lot of people stopping and talking to them on the sidewalk. I think one answer to that is having those signs about, number one, women regret abortion is a great message to show that. But number two, abortion pill reversal.
Yeah.
Which usually leads people to think, wait a minute, you can reverse it, and why would you want to reverse it?
Right. If it can be reversed, it may not be a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of information that we are soon going to have that we don't have right now about the abortion pill. Something I'm working on, we'll feature in the magazine near the end of the year, is I've been getting all these anecdotal reports that women are seeking healing after their abortions now, weeks or months or even days after the abortion, whereas it used to be years or decades. And I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to know why. So I've gone and I've been talking to people with post-abortion healing ministries and just investigating, having interviews, all of these sorts of things. And it's really, I think, two factors that have come to the forefront. The first one is, if a woman has a surgical abortion, you can kind of like compartmentalize where that abortion took place. It was at the Planned Parenthood across town. I'm not going to drive down that street anymore. And we hear stories like that, like the women who don't want to be around a vacuum cleaner or a baby or the things that remind them. They can try their best to compartmentalize it. When you complete the abortion on your own in your own house, there is nowhere to run. You literally have to move to get away from the scene of that abortion. The second factor is the women who are being told that the abortion pill is like having a heavy period, and instead they're seeing fingers and toes and things that are disturbing, and they're seeking healing. We know that the women who are choosing life at their local pregnancy help centers, many of them, it's word of mouth. My friend was pregnant. She came here. She got help. She told me about it. I think we are going to see more and more, just as we're seeing with the detransitioners and the whole trans thing, it's kind of burgeoning. I think we're going to see more and more women who have that firsthand experience with the abortion pill sharing their stories, offering their testimonies, either publicly or privately on a smaller scale. And that, I think, there's kind of this temptation to believe that the move toward the abortion pill, now it's the majority of all abortions. In some estimates I've seen 2/3 of all abortions are now the abortion pill. This isn't inevitable that we're just going to steamroll it until every abortion is an abortion pill and suddenly there's no way for us to impact women out on the streets because they're all getting them through the mail. There's going to be a backlash. There's going to be a pushback, and we're keeping our eye and our ear to the ground to make sure that we know those stories and can fight back against the abortion pill.
Yep.
I 100% agree. And the thing that abortion pill has going against it is it fails the word of mouth test because women say, you don't want to do that. I mean, even Abby, when she was working in Planned Parenthood, she started talking women out of the abortion pill because she had had one. That's pretty powerful. Yeah. She was like not converted. She was just like, that's when she kind of noticed, is that not my job? Aren't I supposed to sell abortion?
That was the running joke with the workers is like, oh, this patient wants the abortion pill. Don't let her around Abby.
Don't let her around Abby.
Yeah.
But surgical abortion is, I had one, went in, it was fast.
They might knock you out for it depending on.
The nurse was nice. Right. They gave me a cup of water. I'm never going back there ever again, as Steve just said. The word of mouth is a lot better. But word of mouth, if your friend says, well, so what was it like? And she's like, I saw it in the toilet.
And I've seen women who still say they're pro-choice. I've seen online Reddit threads where it was comment after comment after comment of women. It was like almost all of them felt the need to say, I still support a woman's right to choose, but this was the most awful experience of my life and I will never do it again. I thought it was like similar stories. And you can trace them back and find out they're not just like some pro-life trolls that are making stories up. And it was like, wow, this is powerful. I took screenshots of those. We saw a lot of those in Texas after the heartbeat law was enacted, And there were I'm in Austin, and there was campus flyers advertising abortion pills. And so that went on Reddit, and there was all these comments. And that's a good sign that they're not that they're having these, we don't want women to have these complications, of course, but we know that that's what happens and that they're being public about it.
Yes. And I'm telling you, that's why we're going to see right now. It's just like the Tesla stock back in 2020 and 2020, where it just seems like it's just going to go up forever. And that's going to correct itself because the experience is awful.
Yeah.
So that's, the abortion pill numbers I predict are going to go down and go down significantly in the next 5 years, which Planned Parenthood wants, by the way, because their model is still, they want the surgical abortion. They want, you to come in, all that stuff. But I think there's another reason too, and it ties into what we've heard. We've heard it for years, actually, that the post-abortive healing ministries, they're getting calls the next day. Mm-hmm. I've heard a couple of instances where women have called from the lobby, like afterwards. They didn't even make it to or the parking lot, Yeah.
Still bleeding is the phrase that was used in numerous of these interviews that I've had.
Wow.
And my issue with that I'm hopeful on is not only obviously how great it is that they're, but that women today who have abortions, unlike maybe the 80s or 90s or early 2000s, clearly know that it's wrong, or they at least know the biology of it, because every Gen Z person has a picture of their own ultrasound somewhere, whether they've seen it or not. They know that it exists. And we just know more now. So it's hard to, I think more of them know that it's wrong. And we've talked about how Gen Z is the most pro-life generation at their age than any previous generation at that age. And it's just because of science. It's just common sense. So,
the abortion industry thinks that women are stupid.
Yes.
This is where the true misogyny is. Because, I spoke with Esther, who is a Rachel's Vineyard coordinator, and she's talking about how they're kind of shocked to see the fingers and the toes. It's like, so how do they feel about getting something other than what they were sold? And she said they feel they were lied to. And the abortion industry thinks women are stupid, that they can tell them this lie, and that they're not going to believe their own eyes. They're going to believe the talking points that they were sold because they're so enthusiastic about exercising their right to choose. And I think that's gonna backfire. I think it's gonna bite them.
And this is where some laws that went into effect in various states, I know in Texas, several years back, that required abortion doctors to have a certain script as part of the pre-abortion consultation. Of course, the abortion industry was fighting against this, but basically telling them, you have to tell them the things that they will see and the actual risks. You can't just hand them a packet and say, sign this at the bottom, don't bother reading it. And I remember specifically one of the Texas state legislatures, I don't know if it was a senator, she said, women have a right not to know. That was her argument against passing this. Women have a right not to know. And I was like, oh, that's a good one.
That's like the judge in the Charlie Gard case. It is not in Charlie's best interest that he live.
That's Orwellian.
That's what the psychopath judge said.
Ignorance is bliss, freedom is slavery.
Yeah. Oh my word. Okay, let's do one quick one, and this will be part 1 of a questions podcast. We will do part 2 of the questions podcast. Okay, this is so practical. Do you see results from struggling campaigns as well as robust campaigns? No need to mention the location, but our campaign is sometimes depressing as far as filling the hours. I love this question. This is like what I would have written in when I was leading a campaign. Mm-hmm. Should we keep going? Quit. It's all over for you.
Well,
This was anonymous, by the way.
You were part of the original 40 Days for Life leadership team here.
The leadership team, which took all the hours.
Should you have kept going, Shawn? At that point?
Yeah. So we have been part of. It's really hard, okay? Because when we started here before 40 Days for Life, so hard to get people out. One of the reasons I hired you, one of the reasons I hired Elizabeth, we just needed people that were going to go out, young women that were going to go out and say, you have to do this or you're a loser. And y'all did a great job at that. Thank you.
I didn't tell people they were losers,
but
just for the record.
Early on, it was Mary Lisa and I, and there was a handful of students here, but it was all like the community members and the older folks, and we're like, we got to get people out, and no one wanted to come out, and it's so frustrating. And you see all these activities at church, and you're like, you don't care about the unborn. I mean, I loved my days as overzealot pro-life guy.
You want to feed the homeless? So what about the babies that are being killed?
He's gonna pee it out, all that stuff. So yeah, you're just like, nobody's for us. It's all negative. And yet we saw so many results. And so when we do the first 40 days campaign, which was a big struggle, there's no way that was becoming a global movement. That was just not happening, right? Mm-hmm. This is the Holy Spirit part.
Back in OFO.
So then in the fall of 2007, we launch it nationally. Were you at our kickoff that year?
Yes.
Like 350, 400 people in front. And maybe in 2008, it was even more. And I was like, dang, like this is awesome. But you kind of, like, to address this question, there's something nostalgic about the not filling the hours and struggling to get volunteers. And of course, you're like, it's always hot or it's always cold and everything is, but you're doing it. And without that, you won't be able to, grow, number one. But if you get so caught up on the results, you'll get frustrated and quit. And I think our lack of results led to starting 40 Days for Life because we weren't saving any babies, no volunteers were coming out. And so the answer is yes, we do see results from struggling campaigns. Because if you're out there an hour a week, it's going to have an impact than not being out there at all. Mm-hmm. And struggling is good. We can offer that up. We can have it increase our prayer lives. We can, I think too often, we don't know the location, this anonymous person. We need to tell people we're struggling. This question to us should be a vigil volunteer recruitment email.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm thinking of quitting. That'll get people out there. I've never pulled that card because I'd be like totally lying. But if you're actually on the verge of, I think this isn't working and we need to cash it in, tell people that.
Yeah.
Tell your priest, tell your pastor, tell the people you go to church with.
I think it's really important that this be said, and I think it's all the more important that you're the one saying it. Because if you look at sort of the phenomenon of 40 Days for Life, Unplanned and the best-selling books and all these things. I think there are some people who get the inaccurate impression that they're the only location that's struggling.
Yeah.
And it's simply
that's the problem
the
that I have with success and growth with 40 Days for Life is 40 days, and I say it every year at the symposium that 40 Days for Life is hard. It's always hard. It's never like, it's like cold water. You're not going to get used to it, nor should you. And that's hard for me because when you enter into 40 Days for Life now, we have like 6, 7 people on our campaign team. There's training, there's symposiums, there's regional workshops. It's all free to you. You get t-shirts and polos. We hook you up, which is what we should do and what we're always going to do. But if you started leading in like 2009, it's like, you're going to need to bring your own lunch, I mean, but that's just the nature of it. But I do think people look and they see the movie or the books or whatever, and they're like, well, this is just, this is successful. It's untouchable and I'm struggling to do it. What's wrong with me?
No, that's the beauty of one of the great things about the symposium. So I've been blessed to be at all the symposiums and was there as a leader for many years, and you're talking face to face with leaders, sharing the same discouraging stories like, how do you do it? I'm really struggling. I have to do 3 hours a day in order to keep them up. And then it's like, oh yeah, we have to, and everybody starts realizing there's a lot of people that are struggling to fill hours. There's a lot of people that are being turned away by churches, by pastors who are pro-life to your face, but they don't want to show that from the pulpit or any sort of public facing site on their church site. And I can't emphasize this enough. From personal experience, when I have been on the sidewalk or been running a campaign, and I've gotten to the point many times, like I burned out, I don't know how many times, but I got to the point where I was just like, I don't know how to sell this to anybody. We're not seeing a lot of results. I don't understand why, and then I'd have pity parties. Why am I the only one on the sidewalk?
Yeah,
right? And
I've done a lot of that.
God would usually show me something.
No
not
one
long
else
after that.
cares.
No one else cares. There's all these Christians in the community.
Trap of the devil.
But anytime those sorts of discouraging thoughts would enter in, I think about Jackie and Pam and Kelly and Abby and all of these phenomenal, brave former abortion workers that have come out over and over and over again and have kept this. All of them have various messages, but there's one common thread, and that is keep going.
Yeah.
Your peaceful presence is so impactful. And I think, I don't know if we said on the podcast before, Kelly Lester is one of the former abortion workers, and she shares in her testimony out of her facility in Virginia that crap would be happening in their facility. The sterilizing machine would stop working, and this would go wrong. And at some point when it seemed like, okay, stuff's falling apart here, something's going wrong, somebody would stop and say, hey, look out the window. Is that guy standing there with his family praying? Mm-hmm. The abortion workers, who some identify as Christians, some are atheists, Satanists, whatever, right? But they're recognizing the power of your prayer on the inside of the facility. And that's like, okay, stop complaining. Just go to the sidewalk. Be faithful. Don't necessarily worry about being successful, to paraphrase Mother Teresa.
Well, and Abby put that in her book, which I didn't think about at the time, but the way she wrote about it ended up being very beautiful. But she, when she left and we kind of became friends and all that, like in the first few weeks of when she walked over, and I was like 27, 26 years old.
Car salesman, as he always called himself.
Yeah. Selling, going out to abortion facilities, not doing a good job of it. And I was like, you can tell me, like, does this do anything? And she's like, basically gave me the you're an idiot.
Right, exactly.
With no faith speech.
Look who you're asking,
Yeah,
Shawn.
that's the irony of it, looking back. But I already gotten used to her. Like, it's like I forgot she worked at Planned Parenthood, but I was like...
We've been friends for a long time.
This is awful. It's awful, y'all being out there for us.
Yeah.
Like women don't show up. She goes through all. She's like, you have no idea the impact of the no-show rate and all of that stuff. And of course, now we have all those stats and we've had more workers. But that's the thing. And whenever I think, should we keep going? I guess it's a fair question, but it should not apply to this. I think that you could say, should I keep going? I think we should all say that, like me as a leader, me as a volunteer, whatever, like, is this prudent for me to be doing this with my current obligations, all of that. Sure. But should we, the pro-life movement, keep going? Absolutely.
I think it's a question from someone who knows the answer is yes and just needs a little bit of encouragement. And one of my sources of encouragement is this, is who else struggled to come up with followers and retain followers?
Yeah.
Little John 6 action there.
John 6, yeah.
They all run away from him. And then even the ones who stayed, they one betrayed him, one denied him, the rest, like Peter, James and John fall asleep. The rest, except for John, abandoned him at the cross. This is part of it. And if we believe what we say we do, if we trust the Lord, there's no prayer that's ever in vain. God loves these moms and babies more than we can. He's not going to be outdone in generosity. And I oftentimes think about when I was a new 40 Days for Life leader, I went and my wife and I belong to the largest Catholic parish in our diocese. And we're like, great, we're going to bring in all the people. And we took a full weekend and we're there. We got a babysitter to watch our son, Peter. He was like 1 or 2 at the time.
Yeah.
Babysitter. We're there before, after every Mass, after every Mass. We're at the pulpit making the announcement. We've got the flyers. We got the bulletin. Everything is there, whole thing. We get to the end of the weekend. I look at the list, the sign-up list. There's 4 names on it.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1 is my wife. Number 2 and 3 were existing volunteers. And then there's some woman named Judy. I'm like, Great. Thanks, Judy. Like, I spent my whole weekend here. I could have used my babysitting time to go out to dinner with my wife. Instead, I used it to get Judy. Well, you know what happened? Judy became one of our most faithful volunteers.
Yep. Hey now.
Judy got trained in sidewalk outreach. Judy became one of our best sidewalk counselors. Judy saved a lot of babies. Judy became our day captain, recruiting and filling the schedule every Sunday. Judy, when Laura and I moved, became the church coordinator for our parish. I think if I go back and I look at all of the time I've spent trying to mobilize pro-lifers, I don't know if there's been a more fruitful day than that Sunday at our Catholic church.
Wow.
When all that I got was Judy. She alone made it the most fruitful experience I think I've had recruiting.
I know her, and I've never heard that story. That's like phenomenal.
I had a similar situation with a Christian music festival I went to, and there was thousands of people there. And I got one guy to sign up. He ended up being one of our day captains, one of our most effective prayer volunteers and sidewalk counselors for many years. And it was incredible because I was there at that booth for that one day during that Christian music festival.
So I have two extremes. The worst speech I've ever given in my life. It's like the summer.
Is there video of this?
Yeah, I was going to say, oh.
No, it's like the after mass announcement.
Didn't happen.
We really shouldn't be allowed to do, but they allowed us to do it. So it's summer of like 05? 04 maybe? So I go, Monsignor was hilarious. What are you doing here? I'm here for the mass. Where's your wife? She's much better at public speaking than you. And she's prettier. Like, it was just hysterical. He's hilarious. That's the opinion of a lot of people, and it's an accurate one. So Mary Lisa and I were like splitting up, okay? And she's at one parish, I'm at the other. We don't have kids yet. We're married. We're like the little pro-life couple. So I go to this 5:30 mass, and I'm all wound up because it's hot. Nobody's signing up. I don't think we've gotten a new volunteer in like months, okay? So internally, I'm kind of boiling, right? Like, none of these people want to help. It's a 5:30 mass. I mean, it's a bunch of 80-year-olds, right? So I don't know what my hope was. So I got it's a big parish, like what you're talking about. And I'm going to hide that I'm upset, but the talk is so awful. Like, I have like 3 minutes, and I do every 27 seconds, a baby is aborted in the United States. Opening line, right? Okay. So then I go through the stat, and then I like do that stat in like 17 different ways to show like it's like the most depressing talk ever.
Abandon hope.
Oh yeah, jump now. And so then I get to the end, and I want to say, like, I've built up, like, we got to go out pray at the abortion facility and Planned Parenthood and blah, blah, blah. And I do, they're the devil, they're racist, all this stuff. It's like everything in this 3 minutes. And so I'm like 21. And so then I'm going to close it by saying, you can do this. You are doing this. Like, even though they weren't. Like, we're all in this together. And I say, you can do this. You will do this. And I walk off.
Oh my God.
Like total a-hole. Nobody signs up, right? Nobody. And then if you fast forward. Oh God, awful. So you fast forward to like the fall of 07. And recruiting, Mary Lisa and I were in charge of recruiting volunteers, and training the sidewalk counselors. And it was so hard. It was so hard. And we're like, in our own opinion of ourselves, we're like outgoing, fun people, you know?
Happy, peppy people.
Yeah. And so, you know, we like talk to a tree. Women like meet Mary Lisa, and she's loud and bubbly and fun. And they're like, your husband must be really quiet. And she like spits out her coffee and laughter. And like, he's the loudest human on earth. So then you fast forward to like 07, we filled half the hours for our 24-hour 40 days campaign. We have a kickoff rally, all full, 1 hour. And then it's just like, I can't, the fact that is, and I know that that's like, leaders hate when you say that. Like, we had all of our hours filled 2 months out. But
yeah.
But it's good that that happens, and it's good that it doesn't happen. I've personally experienced both, and it's one of the reasons I stopped leading the Coalition for Life to go full-time with 40 Days, because 40 Days had grown so much, and I was always gone anyways, visiting the campaigns and all that, and I wasn't leading my local campaign. I led 10 local campaigns before having to just help others lead theirs. But I point that out to the listener to know, like, we've said all the dumb stuff. We've struggled. We've seen success. We've seen failures. That's just like part of it. And it's part of growth. You will do this.
I think we have this sort of idea that to achieve a victory, you need like 51% to get behind you. And all you really need is a small number of committed people to win some really big victories. And I get really inspired, and a lot of people are really inspired by some of our campaigns. Dan in September in Milwaukee, who are saving babies like pretty much every day. And when there were actually abortions in Texas, like they're saving babies every day in Houston. There's some really wonderful stories that we should all be impressed by. But I think the stories that touch my heart the most deeply are, the one I can think of in particular was from the Midwest. We got an email from someone who said, we've been out praying since 1987 and we just saved our first baby.
Wow.
Wow.
The fortitude that it takes that person to go out for the better part of 4 decades, trusting in our Lord. Blessed are those who have not seen but who have believed. So in conclusion, Anonymous, you can do this.
And
You can do this.
That
You will do this.
that
I
group,
can't believe no one signed up.
that group probably had many more lives saved that they just didn't
Yes.
know about. This was their first known one. I would bet. I would be willing to place a bet on that. But you will do this, Shawn. You will close this podcast out.
Like, do you you guys
Worst
watch 24?
mass announcement ever.
Did you watch 24 back in the Jack Bauer days?
I've seen it.
I didn't
Okay.
watch 24.
Whenever it came down to it, they're like, they got to stop the terrorists. Like, you don't have a choice. So that's our
That's right.
household's, you will do this.
Please.
You don't have a choice.
My early public speaking career was a little rough. There's no doubt about it.
You don't say.
And there is footage. When we had Alan Keyes, that's the oldest talk I have, I think, that's on video.
You put it in the VCR at the school.
Yeah,
study hall?
no, it's a CD. It's a DVD.
Okay.
It's from 2006. It's the first time I spoke at our banquet. I was terrified, and I had to go after Alan Keyes. It was awful. Like the experience, like having to go get on stage and talk. But I didn't yell at everybody. Okay, we'll look at that camera. Okay, so this is part 1 of questions. Part 2, we will get into in the next episode. And so we hope that you stick around for that. And if there is something if you do have a question, please send it to podcast@40daysforlife.com. We may do another one of these later in the year because we get a lot of questions. And as the election rolls around, I'm sure there will be many, many more. So be sure to email us your questions at podcast@40daysforlife.com and pre-order your copy of What to Say When To. Do that today. You can do it. You will do it. Thank you, and God bless you.